Good morning, everyone. Privileged to be here today. I'm Robert Moore, the chairman of the Arkansas Highway Commission. I'd like to welcome everybody that's here in person today and all those that are joining us via our television coverage. It's a pretty exciting day. We're getting to see old friends we hadn't seen for over a year. Everybody's unmasked, and we had to reintroduce, and it's a great feeling. Hope our good fortune continues. Hope everybody will continue to be safe and prudent as we move forward in the days ahead. We have I know we have one special guest, being that I'm from a political background. Senator Matt Fitch, where are you? Okay, I want to say hello to the Senator who's joining us today. Do we have any other elected officials in the room here? Not that everybody else is not important, of course, but Senator, we're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us today. I'd like to remind everybody that we proceed when we speak in the microphone, speak directly so we can get picked up for our television friends that are gathered with us. And remember to turn your mic off when you're not speaking. I'm talking to myself mostly. As we have done in previous meetings, it's worked well, and especially with our new setup down here, which I think everybody likes, and I believe this is going to be our new home, is it not? It works well for the commission and for our visitors here to have a larger room. Electronically signing our minute orders has worked well during our more restricted time, and I would like a motion if we would continue to proceed with the use of electronic signatures. I have a motion, second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is approved. First order of business will be agenda item number 1, approval of the May the 5th minutes. I think everybody's had an opportunity to review those minutes. If are there any changes or corrections, anybody please necessary? If not, I'd like a motion, please, to approve the minutes of May the 5th meeting. I have a motion and second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is approved. Okay, agenda item number 2 will be our minute orders. Dave Parker, I'm going to leave it up to you now if you'll read those minute orders. And as has been our procedure, if you have a question or comment on the minute order, please do so after he reads it. If we don't hear anything, we'll move on to the next, assuming that is approval. Dave, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chairman Moore. A very short list of minute orders today, starting with minute order 1, of course, found on page 1, has to do with the Purchasing Committee awards, the supply and service contracts. Minute order 2, found on page 13, authorization to proceed with improvements at 4 on-system railroad crossings as the funds become available. Minute order 3, found on page 19, coming from District 4, which is in Logan County. Authorization to acquire property to build and relocate the area headquarters, which is now in Paris. The current facility was built in 1959. And finally, minute order 4, found on page 28. This minute order is simply announcing the opening bids for the June 30th letting. That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everybody. We'll start out with our revenue update from state highway revenues from the traditional sources, which are motor fuel registration and permits. We're up a total of 1.5% or $5.5 million for the same period last year. Natural gas, severance tax is higher this year compared to last year by 1.9 million. And total revenues are 0.9% or 3.3 million above last year. We look at budgeted versus actual, excuse me, total state revenue received is 6.6 million or 24.1 or 6.6% or 24.1 million above projected budgeted revenue for this year. We look at Act 416 funding, which is the budgeted versus actual. It's pretty flat. Motor fuel is makes up 52.1% or 52.1 million. I'm getting my percents and dollars mixed up. Of the total, 28.3 million of gas, 23.8 of diesel, and 2.3 million of registration fees. All in all, it's pretty flat compared to budget, 1.6 million above budget. We look at fuel consumption. You'll see where we are, 4.9 million gallons or 0.4% in gas down. Diesel is up 5.2%, and overall consumption remains flat from a percentage standpoint at 1.3%, but up 26.1 million gallons. If you look at it as a rolling 12 months, year over year, it remains flat at just barely down 0.26% or 5.6 million gallons overall. Moving on to the half-cent sales tax report. Happy to report that we're up again 5.2 million for May over DFNA's projections, or 25.1 million over DFNA's projections for the year, fiscal year 2021. That continues to stay strong. Yes.
There. What happened to that 25 million? Where's that go? The excess
That goes in our RRA,
operating.
our RRA four-lane highway. That is our four-lane highway funding.
So, am I correct in assuming that, you know, when we first started this back 8 years ago, we were coming up short on doing some projects and things? Do we go back and reallocate some of that money to the projects that, Lori?
Okay, so what we'll do eventually, when the time is right, is do a reconciliation, look at all the projects that were part of the Connecting Arkansas program,
right?
what they cost, and then if there's any funding left over, bring that back to the commission and say, how would you like to spend, if there is any kind of an increase or unobligated balance that you'll need to decide. But until we get a little bit closer to the end of the program, we won't really know, because there's there's
Oh, I understand
minuses and pluses and all that. So we'll see how it works out.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a follow-up question on that regarding the projects. Weren't there 2 or 3 projects that were planned in phases, so we came up a little short?
That's correct. So that would be on the table for you. If there is a significant increase, it might be that we can do a little extra work that was cut off because we didn't have enough funding.
Thank you.
And just to add a little bit to the response to that, we need to remember that 1 year ago, we were down $4 million. So this 1 year has been great and has gotten us ahead 25 million and 21 million. In the next slide, you'll see that we're 21 million for the whole program. But this is 1 year in time. So we've still got 2 years left on until 2023, this time of 2023. So there's still some time for it to have some dips. We're hoping it won't. But just to keep in mind, this is pretty much an anomaly of the program right now as it sits. Yes, sir.
this slide is, would that give us revenue? Does that give us the revenue since the beginning of the program?
Yes, sir.
So that's the 8 years you're talking about, yeah.
Yes, this
Okay.
is since inception.
Since inception. Got it.
The projected net on the left is DFNA's projection for the whole program. Actual receipts is what we've actually received, and then the variance is since inception of
Got
the
it.
program.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have in front of DFNA right now a request for the projections for the next 2 years. So those will be coming fairly soon. It's the end of my report. Anybody have any other questions?
And Patrick, because of that, you look at it in 10-year trends and provide that to us too when we.
Mhm.
so that
Well,
we went out.
not in this one. If you're talking about the budget,
No, I know the budget's in
Okay.
10-year trends, but, you know, we might want to take a look.
yes,
Yeah.
I would have all the information from inception.
Yeah, what you see when you put, we probably would, I think we would like to see that too. Just
Okay.
the 10-year trends of it, or not, I guess not 10, since its inception.
What we got, what we
Yeah.
received each year.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to watch,
Okay.
look at the trends.
Because I'm anxious to see what the trend will be when Dr. Shelnut does his analysis, the DFNA economist, to see where we land.
Okay. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Second half of the revenue picture, other federal issues. Kevin Thornton, you come join us, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Infrastructure is a top topic across our nation. It continues to have the focus of the President and of Congress. At your last meeting, I discussed two plans. One was the American Jobs Plan, which was presented by President Biden, and the other was presented by the Senate Republicans. They are the ones at the top of the list up on the screen. Since then, there have been 5 other plans that have been presented for consideration. These plans are also shown up on the screen. While each of them provide much needed funding for infrastructure, they are so different in their makeup that it is difficult to compare them. I can tell you that all of these plans range from 5 to 8 years in length. Additionally, each of them will increase funding for infrastructure above the current FAST Act levels. When you look specifically at highways, bridges, and safety, these increases range from 30 to 60% above current FAST Act levels. Each of them will produce significant benefits to Arkansas and to those who travel our highways. Now, there was a development late yesterday. The Senate Democrats have announced that they will begin the process today to allow the $2.3 trillion American Jobs Plan to pass the Senate with a simple majority, which the Democrats currently hold in the Senate. This process is known as budget reconciliation. Part of this announcement also stated that they will continue to negotiate with the Senate Republicans, but if no progress is made, they will be ready to move forward with budget reconciliation. We now have 106 calendar days remaining before the FAST Act expires at the end of September. And of course, during that time, we'll be closely watching the developments in Washington to see how this issue is resolved. That concludes my report.
Question. Which one of those plans benefited from just a dollar point of view, benefited Arkansas the most?
The most, that would have been won by the bipartisan House moderates that's shown up here. It had the highest percentage.
The House.
Actually, the 2 bipartisan plans had the highest
Highest
percentage,
percentage.
close to 60%.
You know
right
where
at it.
either one of those stand in terms of negotiation? Are they both out the door now?
Well, as of yesterday, that's
I
the
guess that's true.
appearance. But again, negotiations are still continuing.
I got you. Thank you.
Kevin?
Yes.
I know early on, we supplied our legislators with a list of some projects that we would like to promote as far as additional funding is concerned to their staff. And do we continue to, do they request more information, or do they consult with us on, well, what do you all think about this or that? Or I'm just wondering how the connection is between us and the senators and representatives that's negotiating on these deals. Do we have a direct line with them back and forth?
We do, and it's very interesting that we receive requests from them from time to time for information, for more information, and we provide that to them anytime they request it. I know that the director has had direct conversations with, I believe, Senator Bozeman and Congressman Crawford recently with respect to this very topic right here. So there is an open line of communication. We know that we can contact them if we have any input we need to give them, or if we have any questions, and they feel free to contact us at any time as well. So there is a continual dialogue between us going on.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Next item on our agenda is going to be our consultation. I'm going to turn it over to Director Tudor to take us on through this to the end of our meeting here, unless you need me. Director?
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry, making sure I'm on the right page here. Okay, so on-call design services, we began consultant selection for on-call design services on January 4th of this year. You approved us to go out for a request for qualifications in October of 2020. There were 33 letters of interest that were received for these on-call design services. They were reviewed. 18 firms were shortlisted and interviewed, and we need a motion to enter into agreements with these firms. Are they on? Oh, okay. They're there on your, they should be there on your screen.
Second. Second.
I told you to remind me. Motion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Noes, ayes have it. Motion carried. Thank you.
The second consultant selection is for underwater bridge inspections, which was advertised on January 10th of this year. Again, on December 20th, 2020, the minute order allowed us to go out for advertisement. Proposals were received from 3 firms, Consor Engineers, Engineering Operations, and Jacob Engineering Group. We would entertain a motion to begin negotiations with Engineering Operations out of Littleton, Colorado.
Have a motion? Okay, have a motion to approve that process. Second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion passes.
Okay, next up is Patrick Patton again to go over the proposed operating budget for this coming fiscal year.
Haven't seen y'all in a while. We'll start with a couple of slides on the highlights. The first one is salary highlights. And just to give you a quick background on how the budget is broken out, it's in 2 parts. One is salary, overtime, and payroll additives, and the other is the operational expenses. The first one, the salary highlights, we're looking at a $5.5 million or 3% increase for achieving career excellent pay increase. That's our performance-based pay. It was 2.2% last fiscal year. We're also looking at an increase in number of positions to help the department meet operational needs. That makes up the difference that we'll talk about here in a couple of later slides. To back up on the Career Excellence Pay Program, though, the calculations involves looking at a bell curve through our performance evaluations, and there's 7 categories, and as long as we stay within the 3%, that's the 3% max, there can be some that would be higher or lower than that 3%. The next slide will go over our operating expenses. The highlights of the budget increases for operations is 1% to district maintenance. That equates to about $1 million overall. A $2 million increase to heavy bridge maintenance budget. That will be for consultants of quality control and quality assurance, and to help purchase additional equipment that Heavy Bridge Division may need. There's also a $4 million increase from roadway equipment budget. We're calling it an increase, but we're really getting back to the funding levels of 2019. We decreased it a little bit in 2020. Now we're getting back to the funding levels that we were at 2019 to help replace our aging equipment. Then the last big highlight for operating expenses is a $3.3 million department match for state group insurance. The Employee Benefits Division of the state of Arkansas sets these rates for us. This year, it's increasing $50 per month per employee. So we are spreading that $3.3 million across all budgets. And so it was, some budgets it was a big impact. Some of the districts, it was a $250,000 impact on their budget. Obviously, some divisions with less people, it was less of an impact. If we move on to the next slide, this will give us the big picture of our budget. The first line up there is the state highway fund receipts. What that is your motor fuel, your registration fees, and your permits. Is almost $418 million. Natural gas severance, we're projecting to be a little over $9 million. And interest income, a little about $1.5 million. Interest income has been going down. You can't find anything really that gives you any good interest anymore. So this is just a product of that. What that gives us for projected state revenue is about $428 million. With the operating budget expenses that we'll talk about in the next slide, there's almost $371 million dedicated to the operating expenses of the department, which include, like I said earlier, salaries, overtime, payroll additives, and the operating expenses of the department. That gets us down to about $58 million that's available for federal match just from our traditional sources. Act 1, we project to get $28.6 million from those funds, $20 million from the Securities Reserve Fund. We normally get those funds in November and December. This year, like I said earlier, the interest on funds has been low. We just made our first request and got approved this week for our first request. We'll be making another request if there's funds available after the end of the fiscal year. Act 1058, that's of the 2021 session. That is estimated at $50 million. It's 25% of a $200 million surplus calculation. For those that have seen this presentation before, you're used to seeing the $50 million in the Act 1 area. It's pulling it out of Act 1 and it's in its own separate act of fiscal year 2021. Then we get down to Act 416 of 2019. That's the additional 3 cents, 6 cent gasoline and fuel is the $56 million, alternative fuel fees and or registration fees, and then new casino tax. You've got our alternative fees. That $1.8 million is going down because the hybrid fees went from $100 per year to 50. So it's going down, our projection's going down about $1 million. With all that said, it gets us down to state funds available for projects of almost $229 million. That's for state match and state preservation projects.
And I just want to remind everyone that Act 416 can only be used for system preservation work. That's the only purpose for those funds.
And if we go,
Patrick?
oh, yes.
If I remember correctly, the 416 funds, they were projected to be somewhere closer to about 95 million a year. What do we attribute being a little bit light this year?
Well, we're going off what we actually received last year, which was really the first full year. And part of it was due to the consumption with COVID. And so using those figures as actuals to help project a budget, that's why it's coming in light. It's mainly due to, well, it is due to fuel tax. We did actually increase fuel tax by 2.5% in this category, so it would have been a little lighter than it is now. But the Act 3, don't get me to line, the act that changed the hybrid fees also affected us about $1 million.
Patrick, on that Act 1058, was there a bill in the last session that put a cap on that?
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, 1058, it is a cap of $50 million.
Okay, and that's something new, right? It was not capped before, but now it is capped.
It was not capped when it was in Act 1.
Right.
Now it is capped at 25% of the identified $200 million.
Yeah. Okay.
Surplus.
Thank you.
Any other questions on those slides? If not, we'll move on to the slide that shows us the 300 and, or shows us the total state funds that we're budgeting, the 370 million that the red circle is around. To give you an idea of what this is, because you'll see there's less a federal portion there. Some of these divisions actually are able to charge to federal projects and federal funds and get reimbursed. It's not fully reimbursable. There's certain things that they do. So when you look at the budget going across and you see the first total line, that includes all state funds and any federal reimbursable funds that we have. What we look at is what are the state funds that we know that we're going to be using, which is where we hone in on the $370 million. And that's the number we use to go against our state projected revenues to get down to what we think what we're projecting we're going to have for match. And just so to let you know, the payroll additives is about 24% of the salary and overtime combined. So that makes up the FICA and Medicare, the retirement match, workers' comp, and unemployment insurance. The next slide will show you a big picture of, and this is the final slide. Some of you may be tired of hearing me. This is the final slide that shows the overall. And what we decided to do is also add, you'll see that there's two difference columns, and then over on the budget amounts, you've got the state fiscal year 2020. That's the pre-COVID year. We wanted to give a kind of a glimpse at what it would have looked like if we would have never had the COVID year. So if you compare what we're asking for today for you to approve for our budget versus the pre-COVID year, instead of going up 4.4%, it would actually be about 4.1%. It's a little different. But we wanted to give you a picture into what it would have looked like pre-COVID. In summarizing with the budget, we're asking for a 4.4% increase, which is $17.6 million, which is made up of salaries and overtime and additives, which I mentioned earlier. 5.5 of that is the performance-based pay. Operating expenses of 9 million, which I mentioned, 4 million was for road machinery and equipment, 3.3 was for the state match, and then 2 million was for the heavy bridge. As far as revenues go, just to give you a highlight there, traditional state revenues that we're looking, projecting out are up 6.2% or $25 million. The motor fuel registration fees and permits, we're looking at around 9% increase or 34 million. Natural gas severance being down just a little bit, and interest income being down quite a bit. Quite a bit being $5 million. So that concludes my report on the budget. Anybody have any questions for it?
Patrick, I was just wondering, I think this is as I think about it, what inflation rate do you consider when you're developing a budget? Well, or did you consider, if any, for 2022?
I hate using the word honestly, but I mean, it's honestly, I don't. I mean, I use the previous 9 to 10 months actual.
Okay.
And
so-
then pretty much it's a rolling 12 months actual that I use to give me a good idea of what we should expect.
Well, but we do a 1% increase. Usually every year we do a 1% increase for our district maintenance budgets that we try to keep up with inflation. I know 1% seems low, but under the circumstances, we're always really conservative. That's pretty good. That goes without saying. We're going to give our district maintenance budgets a bump every year if we possibly can. 1% is usually what it is.
Well, I was just wondering how it would affect this budget if, as some are predicting, we have an unusually high, and relative to the past few years, if we have an unusually high inflation rate, how does that affect the budget, if in any way does it affect the budget?
Well, it would obviously impact how people spend their money. If they're spending more for housing or gas or food, their trips are going to go down, which consumption would go down, so our revenues would decrease. If it's inflation on construction materials, then it obviously would negatively impact us on our expense side. No, sir. My crystal ball is limited. We all tested our crystal balls for the COVID. Unfortunately, we were pretty close. You know, something I didn't mention in my fiscal report, and I'll step away, is talking about COVID. The lowest month we had in consumption that was reported to us was actually this month over a year ago. Would have been April numbers. So 1 month into COVID, 6 weeks into COVID, was the lowest month of consumption. I know that does not deal with inflation, but I wanted to kind of give a perspective of you know, we didn't have the big downturn, fortunately, in Arkansas that we thought.
Okay,
You know,
thank
everybody
you.
thought. I know that's a long-winded answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.
We're gonna need a motion on approving the budget at this time. Is there any members, any further discussion, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the budget as presented to us today.
Taldo has moved for passage of the budget.
Second.
Mr. Farmer seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Noes? Ayes have it unanimously. Budget passes. Madam Director, back to you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'd like to present to the commission an update on the I-40 River Bridge, Mississippi River Bridge, and Rex Vines, our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer, will kick us off, and we're going to do a little tag team presentation here. So at the end, we'll be glad to answer questions, or if you want to stop at a certain point and ask questions, just let me know. But we will have time for questions at the end.
Thank you, Director. As you are all very aware, on May 11th of 2021, a fracture was discovered on the I-40 bridge crossing of the Mississippi River, also known as the Hernando de Soto Bridge. The discovery of the fracture has garnished a lot of attention and questions over the last few weeks, and although many of these questions have been answered, they were great questions. We feel like the story of our bridge inspection program, the story has been lost in the weeds. So we wanted to, what I'd like to do this morning is just provide you with some information that will help everyone gain a better understanding of RDOT's bridge inspection program as a whole, and provide an update on this specific bridge. So RDOT is responsible for inspecting 12,776 total bridges. 7,360 of these structures are state-owned. The remainder are publicly owned roads by counties and cities. These structures are inspected a minimum of every 2 years. And then we have a fracture critical member inspection that we do annually. There are 765 structures in the state of Arkansas that have fracture critical members. The Federal Highway Administration has general oversight of the program and conducts annual compliance reviews. One thing I would like to bring out is the department has never been rated as non-compliant in this program. In fact, in many ways, Arkansas Bridge Inspection Program exceeds the minimum requirements to maintain compliance. Just a few examples of what we do. Structures with reduced load postings are inspected annually, and they're only required to be inspected biannually. Structures in poor condition are inspected annually. They are only required biannual inspections. Inspectors use non-destructive testing were needed, and that is like the ultrasonic testing on our pendant hangers. We inspect those. That's not a requirement. Critical findings and low posting issues are reviewed by our engineering staff monthly. And then in 2017, we increased our statewide QA/QC program by adding a bridge inspection team. Prior to 2017, we had one statewide bridge inspection team. In 2017, we added a second one to double our efforts to improve our QA/QC. And then in 2019, we added a third statewide bridge inspection team. And then lastly, in 2020, we added drones. We began adding drones. We'll continue to do that to enhance our program.
Rex, I'd like to ask you to expound a little bit about getting our staff ready to use those drones.
Yeah, one of the, as you probably know, we are required to run a drone, you're required to have a pilot's license or a drone pilot's license. So we will be training. We have some on staff already, but our bridge inspection staff will be getting their drone pilot's license along with this. Anything else? That's okay.
Laurie, could I have ask a question, please? The $2 million in our budget for bridge inspection maintenance equipment, is that involving new technology, drones and such, or what is that?
The $2 million is going to be available mainly for consultants to come on board to do an evaluation of our program as a whole, and then to also provide additional quality control, quality assurance on the inspections that are going on now. That's the main purpose of that additional money at this point.
So the money for the procurement of the drones and advanced technology was in our budget.
It was already in our budget, but we will probably increase that as we go
I
along.
understand. Thank you.
Yes, we have, the slide you see here before you is the covers of the reference manuals we use, or two of the reference manuals. We actually have a few extras, a few more than this, but these are the two primary ones. The one on the left is the Bridge Inspector's Reference Manual published by the U.S. Department of Transportation. We wanted to bring you a copy of that, but it's over 2,000 pages long, and I thought it'd be a little cumbersome to bring down here. The one to the right is RDOT's Bridge Inspection Manual, and this is just more specific to Arkansas and our program. And each of these manuals are heavily used by our bridge inspection teams as they go about doing their job. Within Arkansas's bridge inspection program, we have 24 inspection teams that are based out of our district headquarters that are spread across the state. Each one of these teams is made up of a district bridge inspector and an assistant bridge inspector. And then they answer to the district construction engineer. They report directly to our district construction engineer, who is a professional engineer. There are also 3 statewide inspection teams who are used to inspect the larger structures around the state. They also are made up of a statewide bridge inspector and an assistant bridge inspector. These teams report to our staff heavy bridge maintenance engineer, who is also a professional engineer. So you might ask, what does it take to become a bridge inspector? The requirements are a minimum of 5 years of experience with structures, with at least 2.5 years of that experience being in bridge inspection. They're required to take a National Highway Institute course called Safety Inspection of In-Service Bridges. And I've been to this course. It is very intensive. It's about approximately a 2-week course, I believe still. And then the inspectors are required to take a periodic refresher as they become available to us. And the last thing I would like to share on this particular topic are some quotes from our overall bridge program. This comes directly from our compliance letters from the Federal Highway Administration. I won't bore you to read them to you. You can read. I think this speaks highly of our program, even though it's been questioned as of late. I believe this says a lot for what we really are, what we really have.
How long have
Could
we
you
had?
highlight, excuse me, I'm sorry. Could you highlight that most recent one from the 2018-19?
Yes, the most recent one, the Arkansas Department of Transportation has a functioning and effective bridge inspection program. Thank you.
How long have we had the program?
Since 1972.
And so, I assume it changes year to year based on our own standards and federal standards?
There are updates, regular updates as technology improves, as issues come up that we need to be addressed nationally. The bridge inspection program will be, I'm quite sure will be revised after this. But that's just kind of how, yes, correct.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Rex, did you say we never had been found in non-compliance?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct. We've never been
Is it
noted
compliance?
non-compliant.
Compliance and non-compliance, is that,
I'm sorry?
is it, if it's not non-compliance, we've been found to be in compliance with the federal highways. There's not other standards, is there?
There are some, if there's a minor issue that needs to be addressed, it will be compliant with substantial compliance, sorry, and then we will correct this, minor things, but yes, sir. So there are some degrees.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So moving on to the inspection of the I-40 Mississippi River Bridge. This is a very complicated bridge than what you really see in the pictures. There's a lot more to it than and really we can even bring out here, but I just wanted to kind of clarify a few things and help everyone understand the how complicated it is. So this bridge consists of 5 separate units spanning from levee to levee. And it has 18 pre-stressed concrete units that are 1,200 feet long in total, 7 steel plate girder floor beam units that are 980 feet long in total, and they involve have fracture critical members. We have 5 steel box girders with floor beams that is 1,860 feet long. The 2 span tied arch truss, which is what you see here and what most people consider the Mississippi River Bridge. It's just the 2 channels. This is 1,800 feet long. And then there are 26 steel beam spans that are 3,595 feet long. And this is on the Tennessee side of the river. In accordance with the National Bridge Inspection Standards, these units are required to be fully inspected every 2 years. And then RDOT has added a fracture critical member inspection annually. We do that in addition to the requirements by the Federal Highway Administration. What has drawn much confusion is the timing of these inspections and who performs the inspections. And so I'd like to kind of address this, and you can see from these pictures, this is not for the faint of heart. I get a little woozy just looking at these pictures. What is drawn, or in general terms, the entire structure is inspected by our RDOT inspection team annually. But then we have, in between those inspections, well, let me go a little further into that. This includes fracture critical members using the snooper. As you see this picture on your right here is 2 of our inspectors on the snooper. And snooper is a generic term. It's just an underbridge machine that sits on the deck and then articulates down to where they can get under the bridge. See, they're looking at parts of the bridge under, and then we have the climbing, where you see the 4 or 5 guys standing on top of that truss. That's I think a little over 100, around 125 feet above the deck and about 150 feet above the water. It's a good ways up.
Question,
Yes, sir.
might be helpful, and if you've already said this and I missed it, I apologize in advance, but what is the definition, I guess, professional definition of fractured critical bridge and fractured critical member?
Okay.
I think I just heard you mention that term.
The fracture critical member is, fracture critical bridge is defined by a fracture critical member. So if that member fails, it possibly could cause the collapse of the entire structure. So
Okay, so when you say we have a fractured critical bridge, what does that mean in
that means it has
layman's terms?
at least one fracture critical member on it. So if that one member failed, the entire structure could fail.
And it has a fractured, or does it have one when you define it as a fractured critical bridge? Does that mean
Yes,
it has a
that means
fractured member?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's
Okay.
right. If it has a fracture critical member, then it makes it a fracture critical
But
bridge.
we cross bridges all the time.
We crash, yes, that
that-
have these, yes.
That are
That's-
defined as fractured critical. So explain that in layman's terms. We're crossing a bridge that has been identified as a fractured critical bridge.
I think,
So what's,
make sure, I'm hearing you say fractured.
it's, okay,
It's not that it's fractured, it's just that there's the potential of it becoming fractured is there.
thank you. Okay.
It's,
That-
we
that-
don't, okay.
You don't necessarily have a fracture as I would think of a
No,
fracture.
this is just saying that member, those bridges have members that if a fracture occurs.
If a fracture occurs.
So we look at those more carefully.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when they hear fractured
Okay.
critical bridge, they think it's already
Oh,
in danger.
Okay, I
It's
understand
already
now.
got a
Yeah.
problem. It's already got a fracture. It's fractured and it's critical, and why am I driving over it?
Okay.
Right?
That is why we do the heightened inspection on these, but no, sir, that's not the case.
Let me ask a follow-up question on that, because I piqued my curiosity. If you have a fracture occur on a fracture critical bridge, are there degrees of the fracture as to, the finding of a fracture on a fracture critical bridge, does that shut the bridge down?
Yes, sir.
I mean, there's a fracture is a fracture. You find a fracture on a fracture critical bridge, it's shut down.
Just for instance, I believe it was a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, we had a fracture critical member in Ravenden Springs. Ravenden, we found a pin and hanger that had a fracture on it. We closed the bridge down immediately and began repairs. So, yes, sir.
So be redundant, there's no small fracture and big fracture.
No,
It's
sir.
fracture.
If it's cracked, it's
That's it.
cracked. That's right.
Thank you.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, I want to follow up a little bit. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I'm not an engineer.
No, sir, I understand.
And
welcome.
most people are not engineers, so we need to understand the term, especially people who are concerned about just the whole environment right now. Okay?
Okay.
So you mentioned, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 765 fracture critical bridges in Arkansas.
Yes, sir.
Isn't every bridge a fracture critical bridge?
No, sir.
Why?
Because most bridges have redundancy built in them, that if one member fails, the rest of the bridge other members will take up the load and
That
absorb
makes
that.
sense.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense. So when we're talking about a fracture critical bridge, there is a member in there that if it fails, there's no redundancy.
Yes, sir. That's
that
correct.
part.
Exactly.
So we have 765 fracture critical bridges. In my area, you mentioned that there's 3 that cross the Arkansas River.
Yes, sir.
That doesn't mean they have fractures in them. They're just
No, sir.
potentially, they have parts that don't have any redundancy, and that's why you inspect them continually,
Yes, sir.
so that if we ever have a fracture in one of those critical members, you find it, and you
Yes.
can fix it, and you can shut the bridge down if you have to. and
Yes,
all
sir.
that stuff.
That's
So,
exactly right.
okay. That helps me, and I appreciate your.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
I-
you for helping clear that up,
Yeah.
because you're right. We talk the talk all the time, we forget. Sometimes it's not intuitive, some of the terminology. So that was really good, really good.
I have one follow-up question. We'll get to the end of this, so you can follow up. As we're going back to the emphasis currently in Congress to find new infrastructure spending, and obviously the attention that the fracture critical bridges are receiving now, are we, I say we are engineers continuing to design fracture critical bridges, or is this an obsolete issue after the ones that we have are finally replaced?
I'm not going to even attempt to answer that question. That's probably a better question for Mike or Steve. Would you like to speak to that? Yeah, come on up here.
I don't want to get too far off, but at the same time, we're in the process of informing the public, and I think this is germane to the discussion.
Yeah, and I've shared, and I'm sure not an expert on that, but I have shared before that in general, we don't design bridges such as this now. But I was reminded that this week, the Broadway Bridge right here in Little Rock, North Little Rock, it's a newer bridge, has fracture critical members. And so it's just innate in design that there will be some fracture critical members. But in general, we try to design our bridges today with that redundancy for the most part. And the best way I like to explain it is your standard bridge that you drive under on an interstate, and you're going to drive under and see 6 or 7 beams. And that's redundancy. So if one of those beams fractures, and it happens, truck hits it, an oversized load, it fractures 1, it fractures 2, I've seen 3. That bridge isn't going anywhere because there are 7 beams in an integral unit. The difference here when this bridge was designed was these 2 tie girders, and this is just one of the fracture critical members, but if one of these 2 tie girders goes, then there's a major issue. And so they're just different designs over the years. There's different fracture critical members in these cables. Again, I'm not an expert, but yeah, today we generally don't try to do that, but there still are on some cable stay bridges like Broadway that are still fracture critical.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So I guess I'll pile on this
Bring it.
scrub. So whenever I hear, and we've had a lot of talk about this, maybe in the last legislative session about weight restricted bridges
Yes, sir.
and weight limitations on bridges. So am I thinking right that a fracture critical bridge wouldn't have necessarily additional weight restrictions because it either fails or it doesn't? I mean,
Well, it depends on, a lot of our weight low postings, it depends on multiple parts of the structure. It's not just dependent on that one
yeah.
truck. It could be the cap, the deck, so it's not just one, the load posting is not dependent on one item.
Okay.
Not necessarily. It could be,
Not-
but not
yeah.
necessarily.
Okay, thank you.
But a member shuts it down anyway, and you don't worry about the weight because you've shut the bridge down.
Exactly. If that
Okay.
fracture critical member is found to be, have a damage to it, then it would shut down, be zero load posting.
And that's what
Yep.
Keith was talking about, the delineation between the fracture critical member and the fracture critical bridge is so important.
Yeah, good.
And I would assume, for the public's benefit, that on these 765 fractured critical bridges that we have in Arkansas, you know what the fractured critical members are in
Absolutely.
each one of those bridges.
Absolutely.
So
Yes, sir.
you're able to, you know where to inspect.
Yes. On that intermediate fracture critical member inspection, that's the only item, that's the items we go out to look at, are those specific items that are identified as fracture critical.
On the bridge that crosses I-540 in Fort Smith,
Yes.
interstate bridge, you know where the members are, the fractured critical members are on that bridge.
Yes, sir. I
So-
don't personally, but our bridge inspectors do.
I understand.
Yes, sir.
So they can look at that, and that's why I think, in my opinion, the public can feel safe about crossing that bridge, is because you're continually inspecting those fractured critical members. Am I correct about that?
You're correct.
Sir.
Hey, while we're on the fracture critical and we're talking about public feeling safe crossing the bridges, I was curious about the other bridges that the terminated employee inspected. I know there was several. Could you give us the status of how many bridges there were and where are we in the reinspection of those bridges?
Okay. Yes, sir. There were, I believe, 8 or 9. And we have re-inspected all but the West Helena Bridge, because due to this, the traffic shut down on I-40. A lot of traffic is diverted to I-49 crossing at Helena. And so to keep from backing up traffic, that bridge is so narrow that we can inspect it without stopping traffic. So we have we have scheduled to do a drone inspection of it, just to review, make sure there's nothing that stands out on that bridge, I believe this week or next. And then, but all the other bridges have been re-inspected and we've found no critical findings.
No critical findings?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And what about 55 to that end?
We re-inspected it immediately. And then we asked Tennessee DOT to come and do a full inspection, and they did that within a week or so of us putting traffic over, and there were no critical findings.
Excellent. Great. Thank you.
Okay, all right. No other questions, we'll move on. As you well know, we discovered the fracture on the tie span by a consultant inspector, Michael Baker International, as he was doing an inspection of the cables for this bridge, and the bridge was shut down to traffic immediately. Traffic was moved over to the Interstate 55 structure, and we immediately sent our bridge inspection team over to check it out to make sure there was nothing of concern on it. And they found nothing, but then we did ask Tennessee to come and do a reinspection of it as well. Within hours, we began forming a design team, and that consisted of bridge experts from the Federal Highway Administration, from Arkansas DOT, from Tennessee DOT, Michael Baker International, and HNTB, both nationally recognized bridge consultants. And then we quickly scheduled press conferences to update the public on where we were on the bridge and that we were performing investigations. During this assessment, drone footage from a 2019 inspection revealed damage that had not previously been recognized. We began an internal investigation immediately, which resulted in immediate termination of the inspector responsible for the inspecting this portion of the structure for at least the last 2 years. A social media post has surfaced claiming 2016 origins of the same damage. And as we do not have the technology to confirm the validity of that picture, we have turned that over to the Office of Inspector General for their review. And we are proceeding with our internal investigations, assuming the 2016 photo is accurate and or is legitimate, so as not to leave any stone unturned. Excuse me. As part of the investigation into our bridge inspection program, we did request, as I mentioned, the U.S. Department of Transportation Inspector General to investigate. The Federal Highway Administration is performing a special process and compliance audit of our entire program. Tennessee DOT has re-inspected the I-55 Mississippi River Bridge, and then we have went out and solicited consultants to come in and do a full review of our program and make recommendations for us. So we are in the process of this. Not to repeat the mistakes of the past, when in 2007 the structure on I-35 in Minnesota collapsed during rush hour, failed in part due to additional unaccounted for weight by repair equipment. The design team is going to great lengths and great effort to account for all variables, to be sure we're accounting for everything on that bridge and it doesn't fail because we didn't know. Because in order to move forward with repair, we had to stabilize the structure. It was still considered globally unstable. There was fear it could still go in the river. So we accounted for, in a recent trip out on the bridge, they took a side-by-side UTV, and they had to move equipment off the bridge to bring the UTV on. So we're accounting for everything. The Phase 1 repair provided additional confidence that the bridge could handle the weight of the platforms, the equipment, materials, and the workers to perform the work. And you see some pictures here of the one on the left is of the platforms, and then some of this is just the temporary. That picture gives you a good reference to how thick that steel is. This is what we're calling the Band-Aid. So this is pretty significant repair. As I mentioned earlier, immediately upon discovering the fracture, the design team was formed to come up with an intermediate and permanent repair. The team consisted of the bridge experts from the Federal Highway Administration, RDOT, TDOT, Michael Baker, and HNTB. Then once the contractor was selected, who's Kiewit Construction, they were immediately brought into the design process and offered up some concerns, offered up some ideas regarding safety, regarding constructability. And so we finalized that design, and that would be the fastest to get the bridge back open, but also the safest for the workers. So we've got a short video. This is a picture of it that we'll show you that shows this process. Click it one more time. Yeah. Oop. Not working.
We'll show you that small video later. It's pretty, it's just about 45 seconds, but it's pretty cool. So we'll show it to you later. But go
Steve
ahead.
and I can do hand puppets if that would help, right? Okay, we'll move on. Fabrication of phase 2 has begun. And some of the parts are beginning to be installed already. A lot of the schedule depends on fabrication. We don't have a schedule for the completion of the project and opening the bridge to traffic just yet. And, you know, you can see the quote up here, sitting from my vantage point, watching the two DOTs come together, watching the Federal Highway Administration step in and assist, the two consultants who are normally competitors working side by side and working off each other. It's been very inspiring that they have set aside personal interest and they have and just focused on this one agenda item. Director Tudor brought this quote up to us just a couple of days ago, and I thought it was appropriate for this occasion. It's amazing what can be accomplished when you don't care who gets the credit. And I think this event has really highlighted that mentality. For no other questions, that completes my report.
I just have one
Yes, sir.
question, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but, you know, we've got obviously numerous bridges that come from Arkansas to another state. I guess most of them are across the Mississippi River, but I don't know. There might be others on the southern border that work the same way. Do we have the same arrangement on all of the bridges as far as one state does the inspection and the other one does the maintenance on it? Or is that just this one bridge and we got different deals with every bridge?
In general, that's true. There are minor changes in each agreement, but in general, that's accurate. We split we maybe don't split it down those lines, but we split the cost and different responsibilities.
Okay. So do we always do the inspections and the other state always do the maintenance, or is it back and forth different?
It varies.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Rex, I had another question here. I don't know if you covered it or not. Do you have an anticipated date when the reinspection will be complete on I-40?
The hands-on inspection has been completed, and there were no critical findings found. We are still inspecting using the ultrasonic testing to inspect the welds, just double checking, verifying those. But the hands-on inspection has been completed.
Rex, talk just a little bit about the Kentucky Bridge and how that affected our program back in the, I
Okay,
guess,
sure.
yeah.
Sure.
That was in the paper this morning. I think Noel, that was a great article, Noel.
Yes. Thank you.
And from that, we had a few questions from the commissioners, and so would you address that, please?
Yes, there was a structure in, I believe it was in Louisville, Kentucky, that failed or had cracks on it. There was a concern about the quality of the steel in that structure. So, you know, we developed, after that was found, we developed a special fracture critical inspection process where we tell our inspectors every time they go out on specifically this bridge, but others, this is what you inspect, this is how we inspect it. And so that way they know exactly what it is. But we developed that as a response to the concerns over the steel in that structure.
But we immediately did we inspected every weld and.
Correct. Yes, in the 80s, we inspected, though there was a concern with the type of slag. It was a slag weld microflux, Magnaflux welding process that was used in the 70s. When that process was brought into concern that there were issues with that, we went out and brought in a consultant to inspect every weld on the bridge to confirm that it was good, and these welds were all passed. They were fine.
Would it be true to assume that it's not unusual to get updates on all kinds of materials you use? Not just steel in the bridge, you know, that time and studies and everything showed that maybe that wasn't the best process or wasn't the best material. I know I serve on the XNA board, and we had to replace the whole runway because of the concrete that was used. And we found out, you know, 15 years ago, we used a process and materials that the FAA approved, and then it came up that, well, the fly ash that they use in the concrete was not, how can I say it, what they expected. And it was creating cracks and chips and things in the runway, and then that material would come up and get in the jets' engines, and it'd be a problem, you know. So could we assume that not just bridge materials, but we've got a lot of materials that we have to make adjustments to, and you get notices on, well, you need to watch this or you need to watch that all the time in the general course of our business.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. We're continually reviewing our specs, or continually reviewing our methods to address those very items. Where materials that were thought to be great one day were discovered a few years down the road, maybe they weren't the best for this application. And so, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Well, real quickly, I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of this. What has happened is kind of changed. You know, first of all, we're going to increase our heavy bridge maintenance budget, and those are the folks that do the inspections. We're going up from 3.5 million to 6.4 million, and that does include the 2 million for the consultants for the next coming couple of years. In our current STIP, Statewide Transportation Improvement Program, we went through just to see what is the investment we plan to do over the next 4 years on our bridges. We have $152 million set aside for rehabilitation and $502 million for replacement. That's over 4 years. Sorry about that. Had the wrong button. I was changing my slides with my with my garage door opener. Oh. Anyway, so you know, you have, of course, we approved our STIP just a few months ago, the commission has always put a big emphasis on our bridges. Bridges are very important, and a lot of our funding goes towards our bridges to keep them in good condition. But what's really great for me to report today is issue 1. Because of issue 1, the extension of the half-cent sales tax, we're going to be able to begin what we're calling the Renew Arkansas Highways program in July 1st of 2023. And that includes a $1.1 billion investment in our bridges over the next 10 years that will take care of all of our structurally deficient and load-posted bridges in the state. In addition, we have the $3.6 billion for a second Connecting Arkansas Highways program, and that will have new location and widening, which will include bridges. For example, the bridge over the Arkansas River is part of the new location of I-49. That is included in the funding, the bridge construction itself. So there's a huge amount of investment in our bridges over the next 10 years, including the STIP that we're under right now. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Frisbee, our Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations, to talk about once the bridge was shut down, we started trying to reduce the pain as much as possible for the travelers because of just the congestion, the traffic congestion, the problems for our truckers. So he's going to talk about that for a minute.
Thank you, Lori. So yes, as we are focusing on getting the I-40 bridge repaired and reopened, we've also been focusing our efforts on maintaining the traffic flow across the 55 bridge. Prior to the bridge closure, both I-40 and I-55 carried a combined 85 to 90,000 vehicles per day, and each bridge is a part of a vital link not only between Arkansas and Tennessee, but for freight movements from coast to coast. Immediately after the bridge closure, RDOT and our partners, TDOT, Federal Highway Administration, the cities of West Memphis and Memphis, the police, the emergency services, all in each state, we set up a daily conference to share updates, collaborate strategies, and maintain a safe and efficient traffic flow. So we actually have several updates a day where we get together, one design update, one on traffic control, and one in general. And so it's a really good collaborative effort. So as expected, following the closure, traffic backups of 5+ miles in each direction on I-55 and 40 occurred on most days and continued throughout the peak daytime hours, with Wednesdays through Fridays seeing the worst congestion. Trips across the river were experiencing an average of 1 hour delay, and with any crashes, stalled vehicles, backups caused multi-hour delays. This would cause drivers to attempt to divert through town, causing further problems for local highways and streets. So RDOT district forces quickly worked to add motorist assistance patrol vehicles in West Memphis to assist stranded motorists and clear any stalled vehicles from the traveled way. Our highway police patrol units have worked tirelessly since the closure, protecting the traffic queues with blue lights, warning motorists of the upcoming pending stop traffic. And we've also opened rest areas and way stations for additional truck parking for commercial motor vehicles due to this issue. So on this slide here, gives you kind of an example. To improve traffic flow, our engineering staff worked hard brainstorming and analyzing options for improving the bottlenecks, reducing traffic merging conflicts, sharing and listening to our partners on our daily calls, and working together to find the best solutions. So early last Thursday, RDOT implemented traffic changes as shown on the map here. So what we did is we reduced I-55 southbound from 2 lanes to 1 lane prior to what we call the west split, which is where I-55 joins I-40. I-40 eastbound already reduces to 1 lane before joining I-55, so we elected to close the middle lane of the 3-lane segment where I-40 and 55 join, separating the I-40 1 lane of traffic in the far left lane from the I-55 1 lane of traffic in the far right lane. This helped minimize some merging conflicts with the ramps and allowing even more flow for I-40 traffic as compared to I-55. We ended that middle lane closure about Ingram Boulevard, if you're familiar with West Memphis, allowing the 2 lanes to safely merge together and continue through to I-55 to the river bridge. Next slide, please. So in addition to our changes, TDOT forces have been working for several weeks planning and moving utilities, widening drainage structures to be able to widen the one-lane I-55 ramp at Crump Interchange just across the river. This area was the main choke point for eastbound traffic and the beginning of the traffic backups that would occur daily and have occurred daily since May 11th. So TDOT paved the majority of this much-needed additional lane at the Crump Interchange last Thursday. So these are some photos from what they did. And so prior to this point, for years now, Interstate 55, carrying that many vehicles per day, actually narrowed down to one lane of traffic. You cross the river, and if you're going to continue on 55, you had to hit a one-lane ramp. So it's always been an issue. It's always been a goal with RDOT and TDOT to work together and make this happen. But due to this issue, TDOT made it happen really fast. And so that's the good news. So as much as this work was necessary, it did increase the already high congestion that day, and the traffic backups extended several miles into Arkansas, up 55, past Marion, and on I-40 back to the Crittenden County line, causing some of the worst traffic delays yet. And this again was on last Thursday. There was, of course, immediate concern that the traffic pattern changes that we happened to implement that morning on our side caused and were to blame for this. And Thursday was a very rough day for travelers, and it was a very rough day for all of us involved. Nevertheless, we still felt that we had made the right decision, that our traffic changes were based on solid engineering judgment and that they would work. So we asked for patience to give our changes time to take effect without the additional construction work that took place that Thursday to impact traffic. And TDOT, we worked with TDOT, and they agreed not to work at that Crump Interchange. So they didn't finish it Thursday. They were getting close. They agreed not to work on that following Friday, which is a very heavy work day, traffic day, allowing our changes to be tested for the first time. And we were relieved last Friday to see traffic improve greatly. TDOT also worked over the weekend, this weekend, and were able to complete their two-lane section at Crump, converting this one-lane ramp of interstate to two lanes, getting it striped. We are very thankful for their efforts to gain this important travel lane. And again, I believe this was the key to opening up flow for eastbound traffic on I-55. So here on the next slide, I'm pleased to say that the combined efforts of RDOT, TDOT, the Federal Highway Administration, we are seeing much improved traffic flow this week. So this travel time chart shows the travel delay calculated from the TDOT SmartWay system, which has traffic sensors throughout Memphis and West Memphis to collect detailed traffic data. The normal travel time is the green line near the bottom of this chart, and what it shows is close to about 7 minutes is the travel time from what we call the West Split to travel that 7 miles to Crump Interchange into Memphis. So to give an example, and this chart just goes back to May 23rd, but we have this all the way back to May 11th and further. So we can actually see the travel time delays each and every day by the hour of the day by charting it in addition to seeing the live data like we have on iDrive. And so, for example, as shown in, before I get to the yellow, just to give you an example on the Friday improvement, on Friday, June 4th, travel time was close to a 1 hour delay from the West Split across to Crump, and it had been for previous Fridays the weeks before. And that's not counting the backups beyond that due to stalled vehicles or crashes. After our changes last Friday, our delay peaked out at 43 minutes. So it was already on the first day a 20% improvement on such a very busy day. But again, better yet, after the Crump ramp was converted to 2 lanes over this weekend, this Monday and Tuesday's travel time dropped to 10 minutes. We got it highlighted in yellow, so that was Monday the 7th to this Monday, and you see a 45-minute delay dropped to 10 minutes, which is basically free-flowing. Same thing Tuesday, which was up to a 65-minute delay, and again, weeks before, dropped to 10 minutes. I mean, it was basically green, free-flow conditions. We couldn't have asked for anything better. We are cautiously optimistic. The busiest travel days are Wednesdays and Thursdays, but we feel these changes have been made, were correct, and will continue to make an impact for better flow for the duration of the I-40 closure period. Traffic again was flowing very well early this morning, We did have to do some emergency potholing after the morning rush hour about 9 o'clock, and it quickly backed traffic up. But we had to get that taken care of for the safety of the vehicles. And I'm pleased to say, and I've been watching this traffic just nonstop, and even before I came up to speak, it's looking very good. So what the backups that we saw this morning are already clearing out. And again, Wednesdays normally just terrible days. It's almost back to free flow. It's just the best story I could say. I'm proud to requote a comment that our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer made this week in response to this effort. He recently quoted Proverbs 15:22 that says, "Without counsel, plans fail, but with many advisors, they succeed." This was a perfect example of that quote because I cannot stress enough the collaborative teamwork that took place here. From my friends that assisted in our planning branch to our engineers and maintenance crews in District 1, in West Memphis, TDOT, Federal Highway Administration, and all the local partners, everyone played a role to make these changes a reality. This directly and immediately made an economic, safety, and quality of life impact on businesses, residents, freight haulers, emergency services, and all travelers throughout this area during this emergency closure of the I-40 bridge. So we do plan to continue to monitor traffic conditions by the hour of the day, and we are ready to make the necessary changes and keep the momentum going in the right direction. And we do appreciate the patience of the traveling public during this crisis. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Steve, I'm just going to let you know it's a 5-minute delay right now.
That's wonderful.
I've been looking at it
That's
about
the,
a dozen
that's
times
the
a day
best
myself.
Wednesday since May 11th, I can
And
assure you.
What's the,
Congratulations on that.
are you doing a traffic, have you done a traffic count over the current I-55? Is it 200,000 cars crossing the
Yeah,
bridge?
we are. We're tracking throughput. So that's another way. Not only can you track travel time delay, we can actually count every vehicle in what we call a throughput count. And so, as I mentioned before, the combined two interstates 40 and 55 were averaging 85 to 90,000. After the closure, it's been running in about 75 to 80,000 range. So we have had about a 10, maybe 15% decrease in overall traffic. Thankfully and understandably, that they can detour through maybe Helena, down south to Lake Village, up to Caruthersville. And because again, it's amazing the traffic control improvements we've made, but we are capped out. We cannot get, there's just physically not a way to get more than so many vehicles through 2 lanes of traffic at one time. So it's helpful, but yes, sir, we're tracking that daily and the throughput is running in that range.
And I might make a comment too, based upon what you said and what I've heard from others, and that is that the assistance of the Arkansas Highway Patrol has been invaluable.
Yes, sir.
You might expound on that if you want to, but the comments I've heard about their participation in this I've been very pleased with that, and it makes me think I'm very grateful that they're under the direction of, at times like this, of the Arkansas, of RDOT, because you can direct their work. They work very well with you in crisis situations like this.
Yes, sir.
So,
For example, just to get the traffic control out there, probably the most dangerous place to stand in a lane of traffic is the middle lane of a 3-lane segment or larger. It's just, it's really scary. And somehow you have to get out there and close that lane, put barrels out. And so we do this work at night, and we cannot do this work without the assistance of our highway police, who again, they're part of RDOT. They are RDOT with us.
yeah.
And it's just a great collaboration that we work with. Captain Holmes there, bigger staff, and these guys have just been there at any moment that I needed their assistance. They are there again when the queues back up beyond that west split, or anytime the queues back up, you have a much elevated risk of fatal accidents because the car is traveling along, not paying attention, 70 miles an hour, 75, and they slam into the rear end of stopped traffic. And so the best way to protect that queue is that officer, and that's a moving target. So he's not just sitting in a truck still with the lights on. It is a moving target to stay ahead of that queue as it grows, as it collapses, to get across.
Yeah.
And they're having to drive backwards to traffic, traversing terrain. It's a challenging thing. They do this for us throughout all of our interstate construction projects, and in this situation, They're protecting the bridge as well, so we have an officer that's stationed there just where we have 40 closed to keep people from getting on the bridge that do not need to be on the bridge. So the effort's there, and the same even with the local police. Last Wednesday and Thursday, when we had some horrible days, even before our changes were made, we had some heavy storms, jackknife trailers. When that happens, cars are starting to go through the median ditch. They're starting to go backwards down the ramps. And our officers were, I'm sure, wore thin, as well as our partners with Arkansas State Police, the city of West Memphis, everybody was working together trying to keep traffic calm, trying to keep people doing what they should be doing, not jumping around, not getting off. And, I definitely feel for these officers and as well as our maintenance crews that were out there trying to help direct traffic. It was
Yeah.
very difficult.
I don't think it's a stretch to say they likely have saved some lives, and I'm just grateful they're part of our Arkansas Highway.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for your patience, but we wanted to tell the story and get this out there. So I'm going to say that never let a good crisis go to waste. Me and Commissioner Holder went to the Mayflower overpass groundbreaking, and we were visiting with Representative French Hill, or Congressman French Hill. And this was his quote. He said that to me, and I thought, that's good. I like Rex's quote better, though. I like the author better. But anyway, I think that there is so much that we have learned and we're continuing to learn during this crisis. This has been a huge challenge for all of us, and especially for those folks out there on the road. We really want to say that we understand that, but we're learning from this, and the lessons learned are going to be applied across this nation, because our transportation infrastructure across the nation is aging. And these kinds of situations are going to probably become more frequent, hopefully not. But anyway, what we're learning through this, where we're learning where we had a weakness in the program, that we didn't catch this fracture as quickly as we should have, all of that is going to make the whole nation better. It's going to make us better, but it's going to make the whole inspection program across the nation better. So from this point forward, we'll get that bridge fixed. And then we'll figure out exactly what happened, where it failed. They're going to do forensics. They're going to figure that out. I was just talking to Rex this morning. It just continues to evolve as we go along. Rex was saying there was speculation it was probably at a weld failure. Now they're not so sure. The verdict is still out. We don't know what they're going to find out. But when they do find out why it failed, it'll be a huge amount of information, and there'll be research projects by universities for years about this. So Arkansas is, I feel like we're RDOT and the team that we have in place, and I would really like to commend right now Rex and Steve, their participation, their engagement, and their hard work, long hours over the last 5 weeks. I can't say thank you enough for their teamwork and what they've done in leading our RDOT engineers and maintenance workers and everyone, and collaborating with all of our partners. It has really been, there's nothing I can't say but good about it. So with that, I'm going to stop and ask that you ask all the questions you want. And
Sorry. Let me add to your comments, put you right at the top of that mix. Considering the magnitude of the crisis, and this is a great report. Thank you, Rex, and thank you, Steve, for the report. From my perspective, and I know I'm speaking to the commission, it is really heartening to recognize the response of RDOT, the cooperation response from TDOT and Federal Highway Administration, all the locals, everybody involved, but the coordination and recognizing, and I think the public needs to recognize, this was not a situation that could have been avoided. I mean, this was the crack, and that's, you pointed out very clearly, once that fracture was there, that bridge was going to be closed. And you couldn't foresee we didn't catch it as quickly as we would like to have caught it, but the fracture was there. So this was a crisis that couldn't be avoided. And of course, we're most deeply thankful that it was caught in time so that it didn't cause a really catastrophic occurrence. But the response, again, is just, I mean, I'm sitting here listening to this, and the professionalism, and I don't know whether you use the word cool, calm, or collected or what, but just the way that I know you personally, Laurie, the way you dealt with this from the very beginning, and all the staff, it was just like you go to work, you do your job, and you take care of it, and you become better for it. So to you and all your staff, all the way down, the ones here today especially, I know everybody here joins me in saying thank you.
Well, thank you. Those are encouraging words, and we appreciate them very much. Moving on, upcoming events. So tomorrow we'll be giving a report to the Highway Commission Review and Advisory Subcommittee. That'll include projects over $10 million, along with the same presentation we gave today to the commission. We're going to give that to the legislators tomorrow in that events subcommittee. On June 21st, Commissioner Taldo's up for a ribbon cutting. So that's going to be fun on Highway 195. That was a partnering project. It's a pretty impressive project. We're looking forward to that. July 20th, Civil Engineering Research Center groundbreaking. I've been invited to attend that. July 22nd through 24th, I'm going to an ACEC Deep South Conference. I'm going to be on a panel with other Southern directors from our surrounding states. July 26th, I'm going up to Springdale to speak to the Rotary Club with Philip. And then July 28th, we'll be back here to have your next commission meeting. So, other business and discussion. This is a little bit old news, but we want to congratulate Commissioner Farmer for being appointed to the Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield Board of Directors. It's a pretty prestigious appointment, and so our election, but anyway, proud of you. And then finally, good news here. We just yesterday, I think, were notified that we received a 2021 Communicator Award, awards. We got the Award of Distinction for our new website, and then we also got honorable mention for the 2021 Hermes Creative Award. So I don't know if you've had the chance to get out on our new website, but we're proud of it, and we're really, excited to be recognized. The staff worked really hard. Parker, when he came on board, he really helped get this going, and we appreciate that. And he delivered, and here it is. So we got awards already. We're pretty ecstatic about that. So with that, that's the end of my report, Chairman, and we will.
One more thing, not that we needed any verification, but the person that we've been talking about here, our director, was on the cover of Construction News, the national news organization, in April. A great article about her abilities, and interestingly, the title of the article is "The Confidence to Lead," and that's a great article. And congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, any further business before we go into our annual meeting to review our director? We've been talking about it. We'll go and close doors for a little while and talk further. Any further meeting?
Need a motion for that, to go into executive
Yes,
session?
we will need a motion to
moved.
go into executive session.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those will, motion carries. We will go into executive executive session for the purpose of our annual review of the director's performance, and we'll be back shortly, I think. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll entertain a motion that we come back into regular session.
So moved.
Second. Okay, motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We're back in regular session. We have concluded our annual evaluation of the director's performance. And in accordance with our standard procedures, I'll tell you that the commission unanimously found the director's performance to be satisfactory, and not only satisfactory, but highly satisfactory, and embellishments beyond that. We discussed, again, as we recognized in the commission meeting in May, your substantial challenges and accomplishments. And with the latest crisis that we're dealing with, we recognize your same talents, abilities, determination, and leadership, and we're appreciative of that. So we look forward to another great year upcoming with your leadership. Any comments, commissioners, anything further, any further business? Being no further business, that will conclude our meeting. Thank you very much.
Did you want to comment? Did you want to make a comment?
Did you want to, okay, Director, would you like to comment?
First of all, thank y'all for your vote of confidence. It means everything to me to continue going forward, and I'm looking forward to this next year working with each and every one of you. You're a great commission. I appreciate your support of the department, the staff, and of me. So thank you very much. Thank you for this vote of confidence.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll conclude the hearing. Thank you very much.